Darkcast Network. The light shines brightest on our indie podcasts.
Two suspects are being one case involves. The FBI is now offering $100,000 to see if the police are releasing marijuana.
Welcome to Misty Mysteries, a paranormal and true crime podcast. Today, we have a little bit of an educational and teen magazine quiz type episode. Let's jump right into it and learn about what your type of haunting is. This topic idea came from a paranormal investigator and author named Alex. She also inspired my Jenny Wade House episode, and you can find her on TikTok under the username The Spooky Stuff. I will also have a link to her website in the episode description.
Do you like listening to stories about serial killers, unsolved mysteries? How about a cult or two? And what about those lesser known serial killers? Or how about the legend of a cryptid that will surely keep you up at night? And I know you'll love a good conspiracy theory, because who doesn't? Join me, Kayla, as my co-host Lexi and I tell you stories that will keep you coming back for more on our show, A Little Wicked. You can find A Little Wicked on Spotify, Apple, and anywhere else you can find podcasts. Check out our website, alittlewickedpodcast.webador.com, and our Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram, all under, you guessed it, A Little Wicked. We can't wait to tell you our stories.
It is agreed that there is between 4 to 12 different kind of hauntings, but based on what I have learned during this research, I'll be telling you about the top 5 hauntings. The first type of haunting that seems to be the most common is residual hauntings, but it also seems to be the one least understood. In a residual haunting, the spirit is not interacting with the person experiencing the haunting. It is unaware of its surroundings, and even things such as the layout change, which can be why you will see a spirit go through walls or cooking in what is now your bedroom. The best way to understand residual hauntings is to understand that in life, especially in situations of traumatic events or significant events, there is an energy that the living leave an imprint there for a long time, which causes this type of haunting. Residual hauntings can also be known by the stone tape theory. This theory found inspiration from the 1972 movie The Stone Tape. This movie is about a group of researchers trying to figure out how memories were recorded in the stone of a Victorian-aged mansion. The stone tape theory evolved throughout spiritualism and became a well-known theory among paranormal investigators that we now know as residual hauntings, where the energy of the event and humans can play throughout time on a loop, especially in places with water or stone. Limestone in particular is the one believed to hold the most energy, helping not only residual but other hauntings in the limestone buildings. Residual hauntings can come from both negative and positive life events, from traumatic deaths, births, parties, arguments, and physical fights, to even just day-to-day life. Often these hauntings can be disembodied voices or conversations, hearing footsteps, music, laughter, seeing doors open and close, items moving to the same spot every day, and seeing figures or spirits going about their everyday life. One story that really stood out to me during my research comes from an anonymous user on the website Your Ghost Stories, and it reads, "In the spring of 1965, my family moved into a tract house in a subdivision that once had been a part of an estate. I do not recall how soon after we moved there that I started seeing what looked like a man's foot in a boot, with pant legs going down over the heel. This appeared in front of the TV as I was laying on the floor one night. At first it scared me, but I never said anything to my mother or stepfather. Not long afterwards, I began seeing the swirl of a long skirt in a yellow calico fabric in the hallway leading to the bathroom. It was as if a woman was doing something. It almost felt like she was cooking, and her movements made the dress of her skirt move. No one else said anything about seeing these two things, and I saw them so often it was a routine and never bothersome. I always had a feeling our home was built on a site of a log cabin from long ago, and what I was seeing were the moments from the owners' lives. Except for the first time seeing them, I was never afraid, and as long as I lived in that house, I saw them. My stepniece lives there now, and I have no idea if she has ever witnessed them or not." One of the most famous cases of a residual haunting comes from the Tower, London, and are actually two of King Henry VIII's wives that he had executed. His wife Anna, also known as the most well-traveled ghost, is seen walking around headless, holding her head, and Catherine is heard screaming from her room where she was held before her execution. As for the second type of haunting, that seems to be the one most sought after, is intelligent or interactive hauntings. Intelligent hauntings are the ones most seen on paranormal investigation shows and videos. This is where the spirit is aware of the living around them, and they are often able to communicate and interact with them. These spirits may not be aware that they have passed away or even aware of the time period that they are currently in, and some may choose to continue to be on the earth for many other reasons. Intelligent hauntings can be experienced in many ways, from feeling cold spots, items moving, lights turning on and off in response to being asked, footsteps that approach and walk away as if someone is coming towards you or walking away from you, knocking in a pattern, doors opening and closing, essentially any action that seems as if it is a response to the living or seems to be in hopes to make the living notice them. When it comes to paranormal investigations, intelligent spirits will play the flashlight game, which is where the spirit will turn a flashlight on and off when asked, normally in response to yes or no. So turn the light off for no, leave the light on for yes. They will interact with spirit boxes or recording devices to answer questions in their own words. They can also touch items like REM pods or trigger objects, sometimes even throwing items as a response or making noises. Intelligent hauntings happen often at old hospitals, old jails or prisons, castles, and hotels. When you think intelligent hauntings, think Waverly Hills Sanatorium, Goldfield Hotel, Winchester Mystery House, and Alcatraz Prison. One example from the Goldfield Hotel that comes to mind when I think of intelligent haunting is actually from the Ghost Adventures original documentary. Nick and Zach are in the hotel investigating when Zach begins to taunt the spirits of the hotel and asks them to show a sign that they are there, and a brick was visibly picked up by an unseen spirit and thrown at Zach and Nick, sending them running out of the hotel. Another example of an intelligent haunting is from a story I found on Your Ghost Story. It reads, "This story happened to me when I was 15 years old. My stepbrother and I had talked for a long time about investigating the haunting in our attic. Our rooms were in the attic, and I finally got the courage one Wednesday in September. I wrote a note to the spirit telling it to contact me. 3 days went by with no strange going-ons, and by that Saturday I had forgotten about writing the note. I turned off my TV around 2:30 a.m. Sunday morning, rolled over, and tried to get some sleep. After about 10 minutes, just when I was about to slip into a dreamland, I heard what sounded like someone pick up the end of the dresser in the other room and drop it. I then heard a sound like a bee's nest under my bed. I instantly became frozen with fear. The sound faded out. I heard footsteps and whispering next to me. Then a sound that I cannot compare to any other came from across the room and into my ear. The sound kept retreating and coming back. The 2 times I opened my eyes briefly, I saw blue orbs, which I had seen before. I heard sounds of rain and helicopters as well. This lasted for 2 hours straight until my stepbrother's alarm went off." For the third type of haunting, and the type that inspired one of the most famous scary movies, is poltergeist haunting. Poltergeist is essentially the German word for noisy ghost. Polten is the German word to make noise, and Geist is the word for ghost or spirit. Although the word ghost is in the name, poltergeist haunting are actually created by human mind and don't involve spirits. Poltergeist hauntings are experienced by whole families, sometimes even neighbors and friends, but center around one particular person. This person is most often a young teenager going through puberty, especially young women, but can happen to anyone under extreme stress or hormonal changes. As the person in the center of the hauntings becomes more stressed out or scared, this gives the poltergeist more power. Poltergeist hauntings will often be mistaken for demonic towards the beginning, since they begin with knocks or tapping noises. sounds with no visible causes, lights turning on and off, but where poltergeist activity starts to show is with the movement of household items such as jewelry or hairbrushes that disappear and reappear, spontaneous fires breaking out in the home, walls shaking from loud banging, and water dripping from ceilings. When the center of the haunting becomes more stressed from this activity, it will ramp up. The poltergeist will start to manifest in voices and full body apparitions. Furniture will slide across the room and beds will shake. Attacks will also begin in some cases, with reports of scratching, biting, and harmful objects like glass and knives or tacks being found in people's beds, under their pillows, or sheets. The poltergeist is one of the most intense and terrifying haunts. The intensity can go from 0 to 100 in the matter of a day. The family cannot move away or run from it without leaving the person who is the center of the haunting by themselves. This type of haunting will build up and become more and more dangerous. And with poltergeists, they can disappear just as quickly as they came or stick around for years. Often when the person at the center of the haunting seeks medical attention or begins to take the power away from the poltergeist, they will often go away. Because of the intensity of these hauntings, they will often catch a lot of attention, but because of how quick the activity will disappear, and because they're often centered around teenage girls, these hauntings are often brushed off as pranks from the teenagers or the family putting together a hoax to make money. Some of the most famous cases of poltergeist that come to mind when I hear the name would be the Bell Witch haunting, Jeff the Talking Mongoose, and the Enfield haunting, which inspired Conjuring 2. For a family living in Thornton Heath, England in 1970, their poltergeist haunting is one that left an almost clear-cut poltergeist haunting. One night in August, the family was sleeping when they were awoken by their bedside radio blaring the radio station in a foreign language. And this was the start of their 4-year poltergeist haunting. For months, they mostly experienced their lampshade being knocked off onto the floor with no clear reason why, but it began to escalate in Christmas of 1972. As the husband sat in the armchair, an ornament flew off the Christmas tree, hitting him in the forehead, and the Christmas tree would violently shake throughout the Christmas season. Once the tree was gone, they began to hear footsteps walking around the bedroom, and their son would wake up to see an old man in old-style farm clothes staring at him angrily. The family's fear grew as the haunting became more intense, to the point where friends were even able to witness what was happening. One night, the family was hosting a party, and there was a loud knock at their front door, followed by the door swinging open, and all of the lights in the house turned on all at once. After this, the family had the house blessed, but this ramped the haunting up even more. Items would be thrown in the house, loud noises heard, including what sounded like furniture crashing even when nothing was moved. And a medium was brought into the house, who told them it was haunted by the old owners of the home, who wanted them out of their home. The wife then began to see an old woman with gray hair and a bun chase her up the stairs and disappear into the shadows. And while watching TV, they claimed that the farmer himself would appear on their screen. The family eventually moved out of the home, which seemed to get them away from the haunting. But since the family had left the home, no one else has ever reported a haunting there. Now for the fourth and the most sinister haunting, or the ones that I see inspire more movies and books, are demonic hauntings. True demonic hauntings are actually really rare, and they can affect people, items, and buildings. Demonic entities feed on negative energy and will often start off their haunting very non-threatening, often appearing as intelligent hauntings or poltergeists with knocking, moving furniture, even taking over objects, or appearing as children and family members to gain trust. The demonic entity's goal is often to cause harm or chaos in the homes and people they pick in order to break their free will and gain possession. Their haunting will shift from non-threatening to awful smells such as rotten flesh. Growling can be heard, especially when you can't tell where it's coming from or if it's coming from all over. They will make contact, pushing, hitting, shoving, and scratching people. The air around the haunted people will feel thick and temperatures will become warmer. It's important to note that there are darker or more negative intelligent hauntings, but these spirits are not the same as demons, although they almost appear as one. Demons are much stronger and have never been human. Demonic hauntings can happen for months to even years, and often need an exorcism or cleansing from a trained professional to get rid of the haunting. For many people, the demonic hauntings that come to mind are ones like the Perrin family haunting, the Sally house, Bobby Mackey's Music World, and one of the most famous demonic possessions that is of a young man named Roland Doe, whose real identity has been hidden for his protection, but his possession inspired the 1973 movie The Exorcism. When it comes to demonic hauntings, or in this case I believe an attachment, as odd as this sounds, my mind goes to my ex-boyfriend. In September, about 4 years ago, I met a guy who I will call Bill for this story. Pretty early in our relationship, we were at his house watching TV and talking about life, when the topic of ghosts came up. He decided to use this moment to warn me that he had something attached to him. A few years before I met him, he was at a friend's house who was having trouble with this spirit. It was bothering her animals and her. It was just making her home feel uncomfortable and negative. He shared with me that this spirit felt comfortable to him and protected him, so he welcomed it to attach to him and follow him home. He shared that the spirit didn't like when he had women in his life, but I just told him I could protect myself since I always have from a very young age and didn't worry too much. Of course, until just a few hours later, when I was napping, I woke up in a sleep paralysis. I first tried to turn to Bill and tap him for help or say anything, but it seemed like he couldn't hear me or feel me. When I looked over to the other side of the bed, I saw a woman standing, staring at me, who looked as if she had just been in a car accident from the injuries on her head and her body. She started to walk closer to me, pointing at me, almost like she was talking to me, but I couldn't hear her say anything. I was terrified, and my first instinct was to call upon a spirit I call my guardian angel, but I was surprised when she didn't show up, but instead one of my childhood friends, who I will call Mark, who had just passed away in a motorcycle accident only a few weeks before, showed up. Mark stood between me and this woman, making her disappear. This is a very private moment for me, but at this moment, I got to say goodbye to Mark, a final goodbye, and was able to come out of the sleep paralysis. I woke up Bill to tell him what happened, but he said he never heard me or felt me. He told me to brush it off, but from then on, anytime I was at his house past a certain time, or napping, even after he had moved into a newly built home, I would be able to hear this woman laughing and running around, one time even seeing her wet, bloody footprint on the carpet. When I told him that I felt whatever was attached to him was evil or a dark spirit, he shared that he had past sexual encounters with this spirit, which is why she didn't like other women around him, and she wanted him all to herself. I'm not sure if she's still attached to him today, but leaving her behind was something I do not regret. I do to this day believe he may have had a succubus attached to him, which is a demonic entity believed to come to men in female form to have sexual encounters with them, causing bad mental or physical health. There is also a male version as well called an incubus, which can honestly be a whole separate episode. Now, for the fifth haunting and the last one, it is interdimensional hauntings. These hauntings don't really have explanation of what they are, but are filled with many different theories, especially with the different type of spirits. Interdimensional hauntings are more of lures or cryptids. The type of hauntings or creatures that fall under the interdimensional are a few I have talked about on the podcast, such as Black-Eyed Kids, Hat Man, and Mothman. Others would be Bigfoot, the Jersey Devil, aliens, shadow people, and anything that falls out of the normal haunting. The one that seems the most common out of all of these hauntings are the shadow figures. Shadow figures are described almost by the name. These can be seen as tall humans or children, sometimes even animals, most commonly is a cat, but these have no features. They are basically just solid black mist, or as if you were seeing a shadow of a person who wasn't there. A popular theory around shadow figures is that they are people living at a different timeline or a different point in time that we see pass by doing whatever they are doing for just a moment. The last paranormal story for this episode is going to be a story of a shadow figure that best explains most experiences with these interdimensional spirits. I found it on a long list of stories just like it from Thought Catalog, and it reads, I saw what I would best describe as a shadow person when I was around 8 years old. Me and my friend always had these Star Wars battles with action figures in his basement. We would split up and set up our bases, basically just hiding figures all over the place. One day, while I was in the main room hiding one of my figures in preparation for the battle, I looked over to where the room turned a corner and noticed what appeared to be a hazy, dark silhouette. There was no features, just a human shape. Not sure what I was looking at, I assumed it was my friend messing with me, so I asked him what he was doing, and from behind me I hear, "Who are you talking to?" I jumped around, startled to see my friend behind me in the back room, sitting on the floor. I quickly looked back to where the figure was, but nothing was there. Freaked out, I ran into the room where my friend was and hid. It was probably the scariest thing I've ever experienced, and even writing this makes the hair stand up on my neck. I'm still friends with the kid to this day and have stayed at his house countless times since, with no other incidents. However, I recently told his much older brother, whose room was in the basement long before this encounter, about it. And he then told me about his late night experiences with doors opening on their own, scratching on the walls, and strange shadow figures passing by. If you are haunted, which of these hauntings do you think is yours? I would love to hear about your experience on any of the Missy Mysteries social media. If you like the podcast, reviews and shares are always welcome. things like this mean more to an indie podcast than you can ever imagine. For now, I want to thank you for listening. Stay safe, stay hydrated, and I will see you next week.